This week on the Autocar Show, our star car from the Expo, the Tata Nexon, is all set for launch, and we bring you the review of this standout car. Lots on two wheels as well on this show. Harley gets its performance mode on with the street rod and we take it out for a ride. The Kawasaki middleweight naked gets even better and we bring you the lowdown. Well, we saw this car a year and a half ago at the Auto Expo and we were all pretty excited by the Tata Nexon. In fact, I thought it was the star car of the Auto Expo. Well, we've been waiting for it to launch. Tata are all set. Compact SUVs are the rage. So let's see how the Nexon stacks up. The Nexon will catch your attention when you first see it. The front looks strong and bold with a large bumper and blackened air dam area. The interesting highlights are the high-spec engineering plastic in white that underline the grille and the high-mounted LED lamps, giving the Nexon a large, wide, smiling face. The same material cups the fogs, highlights the belt line accentuating the rise to the rear, and garnishes the center of the tailgate in a sort of extended X. This matte white plastic material is specially painted to resist abrasion and weathering and is quite unlike anything we've seen before and is an eye-catching element for sure. The side has a nice upswept stance with chunky rubber sitting under the large wheel arches, and there is the coupe-like roofline that flows down to the rear, ending in a large flat C-pillar. When viewed from the rear, the Nexon looks raised off the ground like it has its nose down and tail up, ready to leap into action. The complex design means Tata have had to work hard on getting all the panels to align, and we did notice some inconsistent gaps, especially in the rear door, bonnet shut lines and the C-pillar area where the multiple surfaces don't line up perfectly. Well, it may not be perfect, but there's no taking away from the fact that this is standout design from Tata. Well, Tata have definitely delivered on that promise they made during the Auto Expo, that what we were seeing in concept would actually be delivered in reality. Textures, materials, finishes, it's all there, and it actually feels premium and looks pretty much the same to what we saw then. There's this nice metallic plastic that runs across the dash and across the door handles, and plastics like this can tend to look tacky at times, but this one doesn't. The finish is actually quite good. There's good quality plastics on top, and even at the lower half of the dash there's a nice ebony black that's on the central console, and it's garnished by lots of splashes and dashes of good looking chrome. You have the touch screen which floats like the Mercedes system in the center of the console, and as far as storage goes, you have a very large glove box which has a slot for a phone. It has two cup holders, and there is a tiger in there. Well, it's an embossed one, but for storage you also have space here in the central console, which you can fold away the cup holders when you want to put bigger things in, but it's actually quite deep, so if you put your phone in there it will be lost. And there is an openable part of the storage as well. You have USB, you have aux, you have a 12-volt, although the drive mode button seems a bit too large and a little incongruous over here amongst the things. Felt like the button would be for some function that was much larger, but it's just to shift the drive modes. There are some other odd bits as well, like the big blank area between the aircon knobs where you would normally see a display. Also, the touchscreen is a bit too small, and so are some of the buttons on the dash. The resolution on the touchscreen is not that great as well, and the sunlight does create a glare that makes it unclear at times. There are some areas around the glove box where the lines also don't match up as seamlessly as one would expect. However, there are plenty of clever touches around the cabin. The elbow box, for example, has a magnetic lid, the touchscreen gets a slick new interface, and the door pads even have a smart holder for small folding umbrellas. There's also storage for 1-liter bottles in all the doors and a slot on the driver's side of the dash for coins or toll receipts. There's a large 350-litre boot, which is bigger than that of the Brezza, but it isn't as wide and the loading lip is quite high. Still, additional space is always welcome. The Nexon does come with a pretty decent equipment list as well. Well, first inspection done, I was itching to get behind the wheel and give the Nexon a go. The front seats are nice and large and comfortable, and with seat height adjust and steering adjust, it's easy to settle into a comfortable driving position, and visibility is also really good. You do get the sense that you're sitting a little high off the road and you are in what could be an SUV. The diesel Nexon gets the new 1.5-litre direct injection turbo that puts out a healthy 110 HP. Now, as I set off, the first thing that I noticed was the engine is quite refined even at higher revs. Now, the engine power delivery is very, very linear. There's no punchiness, but the good thing is that there's no discernible lag as well. So driving in city conditions, the Nexon is perfectly comfortable ambling along and you won't need to work the gears too much. However, being a 110 HP engine, you expect a bit more. You expect a bit of that diesel punch, which really isn't there. Acceleration is pretty flat, and as you reach the top end, it runs out of steam quite quickly. This doesn't mean that it doesn't get up to reasonable speeds, but what happens is post 4000 RPM you hit a wall, and though the engine does rev to about 4500 RPM, the drop in power leaves the engine struggling beyond a point. What blunts the Nexon's performance is its heavy weight, and to put it into perspective, it's 100 kilos more than a Brezza. Now, there are different driving modes, and if you're in economy and you're ambling around like I am now, you'll find that low-end power delivery is a bit jerky and hesitant. But let's face it, you're saving the bucks, you're saving on gas in this mode. So performance is not what it's all about. Let's get it into the city mode. The normal mode is a bit better, but power delivery here really isn't enthusiastic, and you do have to put your foot down on the accelerator to extract the best of it. I quite like the sport mode, where responses get much better. The engine feels a little bit more enthusiastic, and the difference between modes is quite a bit. Though sport is really the best mode to drive in, even that doesn't really offer up performance to match its power. And the feeling that I got out on the road was just underlined by the test figures. The 0 to 100 came up in 13.75 seconds, which is just a shade under a second slower than the Brezza. However, interestingly, the Nexon claims back the lead beyond 120 km an hour, which is possibly due to the Nexon's gear ratios being closer stacked than the Brezza's. Talking of gear ratios, Tata's all-new 6-speed manual with that extra gear gives the Nexon an advantage over its rivals, allowing it to cruise brilliantly. It can hold a steady 100 km an hour with the engine turning over at a thoroughly relaxed 2300 RPM. At these speeds, there's little wind or road noise too, which keeps the occupants comfortably isolated from the outside world. The clutch is pretty light, but it doesn't engage smoothly at all times and is snappy. The combination of highway stretches and nice winding sections of road on my route allowed me to get a good feel of how steady the Nexon feels from behind the wheel. The steering is a familiar one. We saw it in the Zest and the Bolt. We liked it there. We like it here as well. And whether you're cornering or whether you're driving down a highway, it gives you good feedback and makes you feel secure. The stiff chassis, impressive brakes and generous grip from the fat tires gave me a lot of confidence through the corners. It doesn't feel as keen to drive as an EcoSport, but you can still enjoy a good section of road. Now, where the Nexon does really impress is in the back seat. Tata has been consistently impressing us with its ride quality, and it impresses us again here in the Nexon. The big, fat, chunky tires just pummel through the roads, very little filters through to the passengers. And though there is a little bit of movement as you pick up the pace or you go over really bad sections of road, Honestly, the ride quality is something that you'd be very comfortable with. With the composed manner and 200 millimeters of ground clearance and lots of wheel travel, you really don't need to slow down for potholes. Space in the back seat is actually quite good. There's a good amount of legroom, nice headroom, and it's quite wide too at the back. However, the bench is a bit narrower because it doesn't quite extend to the side of the doors. There's a considerable gap between the seat and the door panels. Still, you can get 3 people abreast here, and the floorboard's flat enough for the third person to have adequate legroom. You even get an aircon vent in the back along with your own blower control, which is a first in this class. However, in the bid to create more headroom, the seat back is a bit too reclined and the hip point a bit low, and that makes the window line feel high. So it's not quite as open and airy as a Brezza. The Nexon, which goes on sale next month, will come with a choice of 110 HP 1.2-litre turbo petrol in addition to the 110 HP 1.5 diesel we've tested here. This gives customers a wide range of powertrain options to choose from. The knockout punch, however, is expected to be the price, which in true Tata Motors fashion will be very aggressive at launch. Compact SUVs are the rage, but let's face it, this isn't just any ordinary compact SUV. It puts a fresh spin on styling in the segment with its radical coupe-like design, and that's what really sets it apart. But it isn't just style and sharp looks, it's got a lot of substance too. They're the interiors. Yes, they could have been better put together, but the materials are all great and they definitely give you an upmarket feel. The car is surprisingly spacious, and of course there's that excellent ride quality that is just so well suited to our kind of conditions and makes this a very comfortable car to live in. If there's one area we expected a little bit more out of it, it's from the new 1.5-litre diesel that we wanted a little bit more punch from. It's not exciting, but power is adequate. And overall, we think that the Nexon is a package that's one of the best out of Tata Motors stable yet. And I think it's strong enough to actually have the competition really worried this time.
This newest little tyke from Harley is the Street Rod 750, which is a sportier derivative of the Street 750. Now, while Harley does have a sporting history, those days are long gone. So it's honestly a refreshing move from the bike maker to revisit its sporting heritage. We've got the Street Rod here in order to test in our Indian conditions and see if this is indeed the Harley that is versatile enough to be an everyday bike. This new Street Rod takes inspiration from the company's drag-styled bikes such as the V-Rod and the Night Rod and packs in aggressive styling. Apart from a healthy dose of matte black paint for the engine and exhaust, the rear fender too has been shortened to give it a sportier makeover. And the drag bike motif continues to the front with a tall cowl around the round headlight along with flat drag style handlebars and bar end mirrors. The new Street Rod derives its motor from the same 749cc 8-valve liquid-cooled V-twin Revolution X engine that powers the Street 750 with identical bore and stroke figures but with a new fueling system. In this high power, guys, it features twin-port injection and it gets a larger throttle body as well. This motor makes 62 Nm of torque, which is an increase of 3 Nm, coming in at 4000 RPM. While Harley-Davidson doesn't specify the exact power figures for either the Street 750 or the Street Rod, they do mention that the latter has a peak horsepower increase of 11%, coming in at 8,250 RPM. The rev limiter now kicks in at 9,000 RPM instead of the Street 750's 8,000 RPM. With an increase of only 5 kg in terms of curb weight, this increased power and torque figures translates to sharper acceleration on the Street Rod as compared to its cruiser sibling. The bike also gets a shorter and wider exhaust that adds a slightly more aggressive soundtrack to the motor. On the other hand, the 6-speed gearbox is carried over exactly as is from the Street 750. While the main frame of the bike has been maintained, it gets a shorter subframe. It now gets beefy 43mm inverted forks at the front, while the twin rear shocks now get piggyback reservoirs for improved damping. With the new forks, the front geometry of the bike has also been altered. and now features a tighter 27-degree rake angle, which also results in a reduced trail of 99 mm. This has led to a drop of 10 mm from the overall wheelbase. And in order to maximize cornering performance, Harley-Davidson has also upgraded the tires to radials. The improved rubber from MRF really ensures that this street rod is not just about straight roads. Even the brakes have seen an immense improvement, thanks to dual 300mm rotors up front, as opposed to the single disc on the Street 750. However, the rear brake stays the same, although Harley is now offering ABS as standard on the street rod, which should really help increase safety to match the boost in performance. So the street rod's got a nice bucket-shaped seat that adds to the overall sporty look of the bike. And once you get aboard, because of the flat handlebars, there's a slight forward lean, which gives you a slightly aggressive seating posture. We certainly were mighty impressed with the way the street rod handles. The aggressive seating position means you're already sitting quite leaned into the handlebars, so dipping deep into corners feels quite natural. The higher cornering clearance makes for much sharper handling, especially when you factor in the increased seat height of 765 mm that makes for a higher center of gravity. Once you're into the corner, the street rod has a rather composed feel that really encourages you to push it harder. And the engine definitely feels more punchy than the Street 750. Once you ring that throttle, the bike surges forward with a sense of purpose. The street rod comes together just brilliantly and really is a hoot to ride. Although it would definitely be more than happy to obliterate a set of twisty mountain roads, the seating position may make things a little bit uncomfortable on longer hauls. Now on the street rod, the foot pegs are positioned a little closer to the rider instead of the more forward set ones on the Street 750. The only issue with these foot pegs is if you're in slow-moving, crawling traffic and you have to put your feet down, they do tend to get in the way. And another issue is if you put your left foot on the ground, your thigh tends to touch the rear cylinder head, which does tend to get quite hot. Another area we were really impressed with is the ride quality. The street rod manages to handle bad roads decently well, but at the same time, the suspension isn't soft enough that it gets wallowy in the turns and hampers precision. We can safely say that this is one of the best Harleys we've ridden, and despite Harley's previous efforts in this space, the street rod is a value-heavy proposition. The street rod does command a slight premium over the Street 750, but that premium is quite justified considering the amount of parts and upgrades that the Street Rod 750 gets. And although some may find it heavy or uncomfortable, the street rod will appeal to riders who may not have considered a Harley as their next motorcycle.
I have spent a major part of this morning with the 2017 Kawasaki Z650, and as you can probably make out from this massive smile on my face, it's been kind of fun. Okay, wait, first let's take a step back and take a moment to peel this green skin and see what's underneath it.
A replacement for the ER6N, the Z650 is essentially a naked Ninja 650, chassis, mechanicals and all. It is characterized by that muscular, chiseled tank, sharp, angular headlamp and a distinctive Z-detailed taillight. It is a positively compact motorcycle with mid-position footpegs, a wide and flat handlebar, and a low seat height of 790 mm. The Z650 is powered by the same 649cc parallel twin engine as the Ninja, cradled in a tubular steel trellis frame. The exhaust, like the Ninja, is an underbelly box with a cleverly designed exhaust tip, and the brake and clutch levers are adjustable too. Different though is the instrument cluster. It is a circular unit that is simple, attractive and easy to read. Quality on the whole, plastic, switchgear, fit and finish, feels solid.
3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, lift off.
Back onto the riding. The first thought that struck me as I sped along the open morning highway was how easy the Z650 felt to ride. The 68 horsepower of power and 65.7 Nm of torque is concentrated in the mid-range and is delivered smoothly. The fun starts around 4000 rpm and continues unabated till the 10,000 rpm red line. Refinement levels are great if you are accelerating towards the red, though there are vibrations at path throttle inputs. I wasn't a fan of the soundtrack either. It was a bit too coarse and industrial for my liking, but it is loud and raucous if that is your thing. Remarkable though is the engine heat management. Over extensive riding in traffic and on open roads, not once did I feel that heat rippling about between my legs. The gearbox complements the engine well, delivering quick, precise shifts. The slipper clutch does reduce rear wheel chatter during hard down shifting, and the assist function comes in handy in traffic. While the engine does a fantastic job of building up speed quickly, the brakes are great at shedding it. The twin 300mm discs up front lack strong initial bite, but tag at the brake lever a bit harder and it won't take the bike long to come to an abrupt halt, the ABS working hard to keep it up. The suspension setup is on the softer side, with ride quality better described as pliant as opposed to plush. While the softness helps in absorbing lumps and crests, it does lead to some disconcerting mid-corner bumpiness. Handling is neutral, with well-weighted steering that keeps the bike in line even when shifting weight mid-corner. The stock Dunlop Sportmax D214 tires were not big on grip though, dampening the cornering experience on wet surfaces or anything other than tarmac.
So well, here's the thing about the 2017 Z650. It's a really versatile bike. It's easy and forgiving enough for you to use on a daily basis. You know, you could use it for your office commute or for your coffee runs. But if you want to let loose and go on a midnight ride or munch up a couple 100 kilometers on the highway, well, trust me, you are gonna have some fun. It's obviously not perfect. There are a couple of things I might change about the bike. I would like grippier tires and perhaps a different exhaust note. But those are just blemishes in an otherwise brilliant experience.